Earth is not a place for practice or preparation for something better. It's not a playground, and it's definitely not a paradise. What we face every day is nothing less than a nightmare disguised as life. Wars, pandemics, poverty, cruelty, and constant suffering aren't random events or challenges to make us stronger. These are the very essence of this world. Welcome to hell. If that makes you uneasy, that's the point. The truth isn't meant to be comforting, it's meant to open your eyes. Let's move past the sugar-coated stories we've been told for generations. Many ancient traditions, especially those outside the major Abrahamic religions, teach us that this world wasn't made by a kind and loving God, but by a controlling and oppressive force. The Gnostics referred to this being as the Demiurge, a false god obsessed with control. According to their teachings, this being trapped divine souls in physical bodies, forcing them to live in a broken, painful world full of suffering and slavery. Yet, most people blindly worship this system, mistaking it for the true source of divinity. It's the greatest trick, turning people into willing participants in their own misery. Now let's talk about pain, not the kind of pain people say it makes you stronger or builds character. That's just another lie to keep you quiet and obedient. I'm talking about the kind of pain that defines life itself. The crushing misery of poverty. The heartbreak of losing someone you love. The horrors of war. Did you know that over 100 million people were killed in wars in just the last century? And that's only a small part of the bigger picture. We live in a world full of systems that exploit billions of people, diseases that wipe out entire communities, and natural disasters that destroy lives in an instant. Think about it, does this sound like something created by a kind and loving creator? Or does it feel more like a prison made to bring endless suffering? Still not convinced? Let's talk about time. Time isn't your ally. It's the cruelest tormentor. From the second you're born, the clock starts ticking. Every minute, every hour pulls you closer to the end, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Time doesn't just lead you to death, it makes you watch everything you love fall apart along the way. It takes away your youth, your health, and even your dreams. Time doesn't fix anything, it slowly destroys everything. If there's a stronger tool of torment in this world, I can't imagine what it is. Still, people like to believe this world is a gift, that suffering has a purpose, and that pain somehow makes us better. But isn't that the cruelest lie? Look at history, millions of people were enslaved, murdered, and silenced. And right now, billions are barely holding on, struggling just to make it through the day. Can anyone truly say this is part of a kind or loving plan? If it is, then it sounds like something a sadist would come up with. And don't let today's technology trick you into thinking we've moved past all this suffering. Sure, we have fancy gadgets and space travel, but what's the point when 25,000 people die every single day because they don't have enough food? This isn't real progress, it's just a distraction from the same endless pain. When warlords destroy families and people are left in despair, and when the richest in the world keep all the wealth while billions struggle to survive, it's clear this isn't progress. It's just misery dressed up in modern clothes. Humanity's downfall isn't some poetic tale or a lesson about forbidden choices. It's part of a larger system meant to control and confine us. Many ancient stories suggest that humans weren't cast out by wisdom or a loving creator, but by a force that wanted to trap us in a world full of pain. Look at the story of Adam and Eve, it's been misunderstood for generations. The so-called sin wasn't about failing morally, it was about being tricked into a life of suffering and being tied to a flawed physical existence. That moment wasn't just a story, it marked the beginning of a long struggle against ignorance and pain. If we move away from this specific story, Gnostic teachings tell us something similar. They talk about a being, often called the Demiurge, who created this world as a cage. This being was arrogant and power-hungry, shaping the material world as a way to keep humanity trapped. To Gnostics, this world wasn't just broken, it was a prison built to control and limit us. The Demiurge wasn't a kind creator worthy of worship, it was more like a ruthless ruler hiding the truth. This belief isn't unique. In Hinduism, there's the idea of Maya, which describes the world as an illusion that keeps us from understanding what's real. The physical world isn't where we truly belong, it's more like a distraction, meant to keep us trapped. Even outside religion, similar ideas show up in myths from all over the world. Take the Greek story of Prometheus. He broke the rules of the gods to bring fire to humans, a symbol of knowledge and progress. But instead of being rewarded, he was punished forever. The lesson? Striving for more, trying to break free, often leads to suffering. In Sumerian legends, the Anunnaki were said to be powerful beings who controlled and enslaved humans. These stories aren't just random myths, they all share a common thread: humanity has been stuck in a system built to keep us in line. A system we didn't design but are forced to live within. Let's take a closer look at how this so-called fall plays out in our daily lives. From the moment we're born, we depend on others just to survive. This dependency doesn't disappear as we grow, it just changes form. We become tied to systems that control every part of our lives. Education isn't really about expanding our minds, it's about teaching us to fit into a mold. Work isn't about finding meaning or joy, it's about making it through the day. Even our relationships are often shaped by what society expects from us, rather than what we truly want. This fall isn't something that happened long ago. It's a reality we live in every single day. And then there's suffering. People say it teaches us, helps us grow. But let's be honest, what kind of teacher would use endless pain to teach a lesson? That's not education, it's cruelty. Just look at the world around us. Natural disasters wipe out whole communities in seconds. Diseases strike down the most vulnerable. Violence isn't rare, it's everywhere. This isn't just random chaos, it's built into the very structure of the world. The system doesn't just allow suffering, it feeds off it. And yet, people still say this is all part of some grand divine plan. This is the ultimate manipulation. Throughout history, whenever humanity has tried to rise above its condition, those efforts have been crushed. Revolutions are stopped, innovators are silenced, and visionaries are dismissed as mad or dangerous. Why? Because breaking free from this state of control threatens the entire system. Whether the forces at play are spiritual, societal, or something beyond our understanding, they all have one thing in common: they benefit from keeping things exactly as they are. The fall of humanity isn't just a story from the past, it's something that continues every single day. It's reinforced by those who profit from keeping people in ignorance, division, and submission. This isn't a wild theory, it's written all over history. Think about the destruction of the Library of Alexandria, the Inquisition, colonization, and even the unchecked greed of modern corporations. These systems of control all share the same goal: to prevent humanity from waking up and breaking free. Every time we try, new chains are created to hold us down. Earth isn't just an imperfect world, it's a carefully designed system to keep us trapped. This isn't an exaggeration or some metaphor. Many ancient teachings and philosophies describe our existence as a spiritual prison. The tools of this prison aren't physical chains, but complex systems of control so deeply ingrained that most people don't even notice they're stuck. Take the cycle of birth and death, for example. Eastern traditions call this cycle samsara. It's often portrayed as a natural journey for the soul to reach enlightenment. But what if it's not? What if it's just another part of the system, keeping us bound to this endless loop? Some teachings suggest that reincarnation isn't a spiritual journey, but a never-ending cycle. Souls are reborn over and over, with no memory of who they were before. Every lifetime brings new struggles, but no real escape. Imagine being trapped in a prison where, each time you try to break out, your memory is erased, and you're thrown back into the same cycle. That's what billions of souls may be experiencing, an endless loop of suffering, not progress. But who created this cycle? In certain traditions, the Demiurge is thought of as the one in charge, a ruler of this system. And this ruler doesn't work alone. There's a whole structure of helpers, often referred to as archons, whose job is to keep humanity trapped. These beings thrive on human suffering and ignorance, feeding off the chaos they create. Their purpose is simple: to keep you distracted, powerless, and disconnected from who you truly are. They achieve this through systems that control every aspect of life. Take organized religion, for example. While religion can guide people, it's also been used as a tool to control them. Many religious institutions push strict rules and demand obedience, discouraging people from questioning or thinking for themselves. Fear, guilt, and submission become the tools to keep people in line, convincing them that their suffering is part of a divine plan. Even the idea of heaven comes with strings attached: endure hardship and pain now, and maybe you'll get peace after death. But is that really freedom? Or is it just a way to keep people from fighting back against their circumstances? And religion isn't the only tool in their arsenal, it's just one piece of a much bigger system. This system of control we live in operates through every part of life: politics, economics, education, and even culture. Governments don't exist to protect people, they exist to maintain power and enforce control. Economies are designed so that a handful of people thrive while the majority struggle to survive. Schools don't encourage critical thinking, they teach people to follow rules and fit into a system. Meanwhile, media and entertainment keep us distracted with shallow stories and meaningless content, steering us away from deeper truths. These systems aren't here to uplift humanity, they exist to sustain this cage we live in. Then there's the role of suffering. In any system of control, those at the bottom are used for a purpose. In this larger structure, some ancient philosophies suggest that purpose is extracting energy. Pain, fear, and despair are said to create a type of energy that fuels the system. Wars, famines, violence, and hardship aren't just unfortunate events, they contribute to the system's survival. The more people endure, the more they unknowingly contribute. It's not just about keeping people under control, it's about draining every ounce of vitality and using it to keep this system running. Suffering isn't just a byproduct, it's the fuel that powers the entire structure. Take a moment to examine the structure of your daily life. Most people spend their days working jobs they dislike, not because they want to, but because they have to in order to survive. They're constantly bombarded with messages telling them to follow the rules, buy more things, and never question how the system operates. This isn't really living, it's just going through the motions. What's worse is that many don't even realize they're caught in a system designed to take advantage of them at every step. Throughout history, those who tried to expose this reality were silenced. Philosophers, thinkers, and revolutionaries who challenged the system were labeled as dangerous, exiled, or even killed. Why? Because this system relies on keeping people unaware. Awareness is a threat. It's the first step toward breaking free. Reincarnation is often portrayed as something positive, a comforting idea that you'll get another chance to improve or make things right. But let's set aside the feel-good narrative and look at what reincarnation might really be in the context of this system. It's not a fresh start, and it's not a road to wisdom. Instead, it's a cycle designed to keep you stuck, trapped in pain, ignorance, and the material world. In ancient traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, known as samsara, is a central concept. But those same teachings also make it clear that samsara isn't something to celebrate. It's described as an endless loop of suffering, where each new life brings fresh struggles, pain, and attachments that keep you chained to this world. Enlightenment, in these teachings, is the only way to break out of the cycle. But achieving enlightenment is no simple task, it's like solving a riddle with no clear answers. Imagine being dropped into a maze with no idea where you are or how you got there. That's the essence of reincarnation in some spiritual teachings. Each time you're reborn, your memory is wiped clean, ensuring you can't learn from the life you've already lived. Why? Because the system is designed to keep you in the dark, endlessly wandering, never finding a way out. Reincarnation doesn't just give you a fresh start, it resets your struggles. Every life brings new challenges, but the same patterns repeat: relationships, fears, and unresolved pain reappear in different forms. This explains why people sometimes feel strange connections to strangers, relive moments of déjà vu, or carry fears they can't explain. These aren't accidents, they're remnants of lives you've already lived. But instead of helping you break free, these fragments keep you tangled in confusion. Throughout history, there have been warnings about this endless cycle. Some teachings suggest that reincarnation is not a journey toward growth, but a trap designed to keep souls bound to a world filled with suffering. The Gnostics, for instance, describe this process as a deliberate system created by powerful forces to keep divine souls tied to the physical realm. In their view, reincarnation wasn't a gift, it was a way to maintain control over spiritual beings, ensuring they never escape this cycle of pain. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a concept called the bardo, a state between death and rebirth. It's said that during this time, souls are drawn back into the cycle of life, guided by their attachments and fears. Similarly, in ancient Egypt, the journey through the afterlife, known as the duat, was seen as dangerous and filled with challenges. Failing this journey didn't lead to liberation, it meant being thrown back into the cycle of existence. These aren't stories of freedom, they're warnings about being caught in a repeating loop. Modern accounts from near-death experiences and past life regressions add to this picture. Many people describe encountering a light or a presence that convinces them to return to life. Often, they're told they have a purpose to fulfill or unfinished tasks to complete. But who decides what this purpose is? Who sets the terms? These stories suggest that even in death, free will may be an illusion. The decision to return isn't made out of true choice, it's influenced or even coerced by forces that benefit from keeping the cycle going. Then there's the concept of karma, often linked to reincarnation. Karma is portrayed as a moral balance sheet, where your actions in one life determine your circumstances in the next. On the surface, it seems fair. But think about what this means. If someone is born into poverty, pain, or oppression, they're told it's because of bad karma from a previous life. This way of thinking doesn't just explain inequality, it justifies it. Worse, it keeps people stuck in a cycle of guilt and self-blame. Instead of inspiring people to break free, karma becomes another mechanism to trap them in the system. Even the idea of spiritual progress through reincarnation feels like an illusion. People are told that each life brings them closer to enlightenment, but most go through life without questioning the system at all. And those who do try to escape often face challenges so overwhelming that their efforts seem impossible. The cycle, it seems, is designed to keep people stuck, not to help them break free. The system isn't built to free you, it's built to keep itself going endlessly. This world isn't just flawed, it's designed to make you suffer. What makes it even more sinister is that it operates as a shared illusion. The idea of reality being a collective nightmare isn't new. Philosophers, mystics, and even some modern thinkers have suggested that what we experience as real might not be real at all. Instead, it's a construct, a carefully crafted illusion meant to keep us trapped. In Gnostic teachings, the material world is described as an illusion created by the Demiurge to imprison divine souls. The illusion is so complete that most people never realize they're living in it. They spend their lives chasing material success, meeting superficial desires, and following societal norms, never stopping to question the deeper truth of their existence. This illusion isn't some harmless accident. It's a calculated system designed to keep you enslaved, extracting your energy, your labor, and your pain to sustain itself. The psychological conditioning starts early. From the moment you're born, you're taught to accept the world as it is. Schools don't teach you to think critically, they teach you to follow rules, obey authority, and fit into predefined roles. Religion often reinforces this by promoting ideas like suffering is virtuous, rewards come only after death, and questioning the system is wrong. Meanwhile, the media works to keep you distracted. It trivializes real problems and floods you with entertainment, consumer culture, and fear-based narratives. These aren't random occurrences, they're intentional strategies to keep you disconnected from the truth. Instead of waking up, you're kept focused on the surface, unaware of the deeper layers of control operating around you. The system also relies heavily on emotional manipulation. Fear, guilt, and shame are some of the strongest emotions, and the system knows exactly how to use them. Governments wield fear like a weapon, fear of war, fear of poverty, fear of outsiders, to control people's behavior. Religions often lean on guilt and shame, convincing individuals they are inherently flawed and need saving to stay obedient. Even social structures play a part, using peer pressure to enforce conformity and ensure no one steps out of line. Every aspect of life is carefully designed to keep you emotionally trapped, preventing you from stepping back and seeing the truth. This nightmare isn't just personal, it's collective. Every war, economic crisis, and social conflict feeds into the system, keeping humanity distracted and divided. The system creates artificial divisions between nations, races, religions, and ideologies, ensuring that people remain at odds with each other. While humanity wastes energy fighting among itself, no one stops to question the larger framework that controls them all. This division isn't a coincidence, it's intentional. Divide and conquer isn't just a military tactic, it's the very structure of the prison. Even the natural world plays a part in this shared nightmare. Disasters like earthquakes, hurricanes, and pandemics remind us of our vulnerability and reinforce feelings of fear and helplessness. But these events serve another purpose: they keep people focused on survival. With so much energy spent on facing immediate threats, there's little room left to question why these challenges keep happening in the first place. The system ensures that you're always dealing with problems, always reacting to fires, instead of asking the bigger question: who keeps lighting the fires? One of the most dangerous aspects of this shared illusion is how it sustains itself. Those who are trapped within it often become its greatest enforcers. Parents teach their children to follow the same rules they were taught. Teachers prepare students to fit into the same flawed systems. Leaders may promise change, but they ensure the system remains intact. This isn't just a cycle, it's a self-replicating machine, passed down from generation to generation, with those inside unknowingly helping to expand its reach. Now, let's talk about escape, or the lack of it. Throughout history, there have been individuals who recognized that something was deeply wrong with the way the world operates. Philosophers like Socrates, mystics like Rumi, and revolutionaries like Spartacus all tried to expose the deeper truths. But how were they treated? Socrates was sentenced to death. Rumi's ideas were often dismissed. Spartacus was crucified. The system doesn't just resist those who challenge it, it actively punishes those who try to wake others up. Then there's the matter of time. People often romanticize time, calling it a healer, a teacher, or even a gift. But the truth is much colder. Time isn't your ally, it's one of the system's most effective tools of control. Time doesn't simply measure your life, it dominates it. It dictates every choice you make, every regret you carry, and every loss you endure. It's the invisible prison guard that ensures you stay in line, shaping your existence in ways you barely notice. To understand the role of time as a tool of control, we need to look at its origins. Early civilizations, like the Sumerians and Egyptians, were among the first to formalize timekeeping. They divided days into hours, tracked months through lunar cycles, and measured years by the changing seasons. At first, this seemed harmless, an attempt to align human life with nature's rhythms. But it didn't take long for those in power, such as rulers and priests, to turn time into a tool for control. Calendars began to dictate every aspect of life: when people worked, when they prayed, and even when they rested. Time became a way to organize society, and with that organization came authority and influence. Fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, and time took on an entirely new meaning. It was no longer just a way to structure life, it became a commodity. Clocks in factories tracked productivity to the second. Workers' lives were carved into shifts, with every minute accounted for and every hour maximized for profit. Time was no longer a natural flow, it was transformed into something that could be bought, sold, and even stolen. The phrase "time is money" wasn't just a saying, it was a harsh reality that defined the lives of millions. And then there's the psychological toll. Time isn't just a tool of physical control, it influences how people think, feel, and live. The relentless ticking of the clock becomes a reminder of what's lost, what's missed, and what cannot be undone. Instead of being a natural part of existence, time became a force that weighs on the mind, shaping lives in subtle but powerful ways. Time isn't just an external structure, it's embedded in your mind from an early age. You're taught to live by deadlines, schedules, and goals. Your worth is tied to how well you use your time. Are you productive enough? Efficient enough? Every passing second becomes a reminder of what you haven't achieved, what's been lost, and how little time you have left. Time doesn't just dictate your actions, it shapes your emotions. The fear of running out of time creates constant anxiety. Regretting wasted time fuels guilt. The hope for more time keeps you striving, even when you're stuck in a broken system. None of this is accidental. The emotional weight of time keeps you tethered to the system, always chasing, always fearing, always regretting. Time also amplifies suffering in ways we don't always realize. Losing a loved one isn't just devastating because of their absence, it's unbearable because time makes that loss feel final. Aging isn't just about physical changes, it's a constant reminder that time is taking everything from you, your strength, your health, your dreams, and your chances. Even the happiest moments are overshadowed by the knowledge that they'll pass, leaving behind only memories. Time turns every peak into a countdown to the next valley. And here's the twist, time isn't even what we think it is. Modern science tells us that time isn't a straight path, it's a dimension, flexible and relative. It's not the unchanging force we experience in our daily lives. But the system needs you to believe in the ticking clock, the rigid calendar, and the inevitable march from birth to death. Why? Because as long as you see time as fixed and linear, it's easier to control you. Time also creates the illusion of progress. It makes you think things are moving forward when, in reality, the cycle just repeats itself in different forms. The belief in time as a straight line keeps you chasing goals, believing in the system, and staying within its constraints. Society often points to technological progress, social reforms, and historical achievements as evidence that humanity is moving forward. But forward to what? Time becomes a convenient excuse for inaction. Things will improve, just give it time, they say. Yet, the same patterns of suffering and exploitation persist, repeating across generations. Time doesn't move us toward liberation, it keeps us stuck in an endless loop, always waiting for a better tomorrow that never arrives. Think about the systems that rule our lives: capitalism, education, government. All of them are built on time. You trade years of your life working, exchanging hours for money, hoping to retire before your time runs out. You spend decades in school, believing it will prepare you for a future where you can finally live freely. But that future never arrives, because time doesn't lead to freedom, it leads to the inevitable, the end. Suffering isn't just a side effect of life, it's deliberately sustained and used. Pain, fear, and despair are not accidents, they're resources that are harvested, perpetuated, and consumed by the very system that traps us. This isn't some abstract idea, it's the core of how this prison operates. These emotions are its fuel, keeping the machine running and ensuring that humanity remains locked in place, endlessly feeding into the system. Why is suffering so pervasive, and who benefits from it? Across different cultures and belief systems, there's an idea that human suffering produces a form of energy, a byproduct of deep emotional experiences. Some call it a spiritual force, others see it as symbolic, but the patterns behind suffering are hard to ignore. War, famine, disease, and exploitation don't seem random. They follow a global design, recurring again and again, suggesting intent rather than coincidence. The world appears to be structured to draw out pain. Governments fight wars that destroy lives and nations. Corporations exploit workers, prioritizing profit over well-being. Social systems ensure that the majority struggle, while a small elite lives in excess. It's not just physical suffering, either, it's emotional and psychological, too. Look at how fear and frustration are constantly stoked. News outlets bombard people with anxiety-inducing headlines. Social media fosters envy and loneliness, amplifying insecurities. These aren't accidents, they're part of a system that thrives on creating distress. Every moment of pain, every instance of emotional turmoil, contributes to something larger. Here's the unsettling part: some traditions suggest this suffering serves a purpose. Certain beliefs propose that forces beyond human perception benefit from this energy. Gnostic teachings, for example, describe beings called archons that sustain themselves by feeding on human anguish. Other spiritual ideas speak of parasitic entities that drain energy from individuals or communities, fueled by fear, despair, or chaos. Whether seen as literal or metaphorical, these interpretations lead to a troubling realization: suffering isn't just a byproduct of life, it's built into the system, serving as a resource for powers that sustain it. The system ensures that suffering is never wasted, it's always put to use. Consider the industries that profit directly from human pain. The pharmaceutical industry thrives on illness, providing treatments that manage symptoms but rarely offering cures. The military-industrial complex thrives on endless conflict, with no real motivation to bring wars to an end. Even some charities, while claiming to help, often create cycles of dependence rather than lasting solutions. These patterns aren't coincidences, they're deliberate strategies. Every moment of suffering fuels a system built to profit from misery. This isn't a modern phenomenon. Ancient civilizations practiced mass sacrifices, spilling blood to appease their gods. But what if those rituals weren't just about worship? What if they were about feeding something larger? Today, we no longer use altars or temples, but the sacrifices haven't stopped, they've simply been disguised as necessary evils. Poverty, injustice, and violence are portrayed as unavoidable, just the way the world works. But unavoidable for whom? Certainly not for those who benefit from these systems. Even on a personal scale, suffering is extracted and amplified. Toxic relationships, workplace exploitation, and systemic discrimination don't just harm individuals, they create waves of pain that ripple outward, impacting entire communities. These ripples of suffering become the real currency of the system. It's not enough for you to struggle, the system wants your pain to spread. That's why media outlets focus so heavily on disasters, tragedies, and fear. The truth is, this system doesn't just tolerate suffering, it relies on it. Misery isn't an accident or a side effect, it's woven into the very fabric of how the system operates, ensuring that every drop of pain serves a purpose. Why do platforms push content that stirs anger and frustration? Why do systems built on wealth reward inequality? The answer lies in the nature of suffering, it spreads like wildfire, and this system is designed to keep it burning. Now, let's talk about energy. Every emotion, grief, pain, despair, carries weight. It doesn't just vanish when you cry, scream, or feel crushed by life's challenges. That emotional energy goes somewhere. If suffering is so prevalent in the world, it's worth asking, what purpose does it serve? Look at the world's current state. Billions live in poverty, millions are forced to flee their homes due to conflict, and natural environments are destroyed for profit. This isn't random chaos, it's a carefully maintained structure. The majority endure hardship so that a small, privileged group can live in abundance. The suffering at the foundation supports the luxury at the top. But it doesn't end there. Across human history, myths have served as more than just stories. They were attempts to explain reality, often carrying warnings about the systems that keep people trapped. From ancient tales of endless toil to punishments for stepping out of line, a common theme emerges: humanity stuck in a cycle of control and struggle. These weren't just parables, they were reflections of a world designed to keep people bound, generation after generation. What if this isn't just about inequality? What if suffering isn't just a byproduct of life but part of a system built to use it, spread it, and feed off it? This isn't about hope or progress, it's about control, plain and simple. Let's explore some ancient myths that reveal deeper truths about control and struggle. Take the story of Sisyphus in Greek mythology. His punishment was to push a boulder uphill, only for it to roll back down just as he neared the top. It's often seen as a tale of endless effort and futility, but it also reflects a deeper system at play, one where success is intentionally kept out of reach. Sisyphus wasn't just laboring, he was trapped in a cycle that guaranteed failure, much like many of us face in modern life, whether it's battling financial stress, systemic injustice, or social inequality. Every push feels like progress, but the boulder inevitably rolls back down. Now consider Prometheus, the titan who shared fire, symbolic of knowledge and power, with humanity. For this act of defiance against the gods, he was condemned to an eternity of torment. Every day, his liver was eaten by an eagle, only to regenerate by nightfall, ensuring his suffering would never end. This story isn't just about rebellion, it's about what happens when someone dares to challenge a system designed to maintain control. The punishment wasn't just harsh, it was meant to discourage others from doing the same. The Egyptian concept of the duat offers another perspective. It describes the afterlife as a perilous journey filled with obstacles and challenges. Souls had to prove themselves worthy of peace, but failure meant annihilation by Amit, a terrifying figure. Success was uncertain, and the odds were stacked against those who dared to try. It wasn't an easy path to freedom, it was a warning about how difficult escape could be. These patterns didn't stay in the past. They've evolved and taken on modern forms. Consider the idea of the American dream, which suggests that hard work and determination will lead to success. For many, however, it's an unreachable promise, creating endless cycles of labor with little reward. Mortgages, debt, and long hours at underpaying jobs are today's boulders, dressed up in the language of opportunity. Even entertainment today echoes these themes. From dystopian movies to superhero franchises, stories often revolve around characters caught in endless struggles. Their battles are rarely about true liberation, they're about maintaining order within the system. These narratives may seem like escapism, but they often reinforce the idea that struggle is inevitable and the system is too big to overcome. Instead of inspiring change, they normalize the status quo, keeping the cycle of submission alive. Why do these patterns persist across different cultures, eras, and places? It's because they aren't just stories, they're reflections of the system itself. Ancient myths weren't just tales for entertainment, they were survival tools, warnings encoded to help future generations recognize the nature of the world they were born into. Modern myths, however, often serve a different purpose. Instead of challenging the system, they reinforce it, keeping people distracted and compliant. Even religions, which are meant to guide people toward greater understanding, sometimes fall into the same trap. Many religious teachings focus on obedience, submission, and the belief that suffering is meaningful. They promise rewards in an afterlife, but only if you endure the pain of this life without question. This isn't about spiritual growth, it's about spiritual control. So, where does that leave us? Both ancient and modern myths point to the same conclusion: the system is designed to maintain itself. Struggles, hardships, and cycles of suffering are not random, they are part of a larger framework. Yet, these stories also offer a glimmer of hope. They hold a key: awareness. The more we recognize these patterns, the better we can question and challenge them. I know this has been a heavy topic, and I appreciate you sticking with me. The fact that you're still here shows you're willing to question the narrative, and that's the first step toward change. Awareness is where it begins. Thank you for watching, for thinking critically, and for being open to exploring these difficult truths. If this resonated with you, I'd love for you to share your thoughts. Like, comment, or share this video to keep the conversation alive. Until next time, stay curious.